welcome to Let's Talk About It with Taylor Nolan. I am your host, and I sound much more put together right now than I really am. Today has been an interesting day for me, but I'm so happy to be here to talk about mental health this episode with the wonderful Sara, who is a local business owner here in Seattle, and it's a letterpress shop, and it's just amazing. And we started off as Instagram friends, and then I was just like, I really love this lady, and I love her. I love all her letters and her cards, and just the level of authenticity that you bring to not only the store but also like your Instagram presence. So I'm so happy to be here today with you, and thank you so much for being here, Sara.
Of course, I'm really excited.
Yes, and I mean, I kind of just want to start off with like, how has your day been?
It sounds like a little less crazy than yours, slightly.
Yes.
I will say I kind of ran into my shop today like a whirlwind and had to apologize to my staff and be like, hey, I'm having a bit of a weird mental health day, so it's not about you. Like, I promise. I'm not like obsessing over, messy piles or wanting to clean things because you did anything wrong. I'm just having a day. So, sometimes you just have to be transparent with people.
You do. And like, that's great communication to even have, especially within the workplace, because I think a lot of people don't have that. So, I mean, you already you'd be a wonderful boss to have just with that level of transparency, because I think in a lot of situations, like, people would go into work and their boss would like be acting out and be like, whatever they'd be doing and no explanation. And then people think it's about them and they feel like they're to blame. But if you're just like, yeah, no, don't worry, it's not about you. I'm just having a day.
I'm learning.
Yeah. We're all learning day by day.
Yes, sometimes painfully.
Yeah. I'll share a little bit about my day today and why it was a little stressful. So I have a few days until I leave for a trip, and I was like, I'm going to be a responsible woman. And so I went to try to go get a pap smear done, and I've never had one before.
Oh, that's not fun.
Yeah, and I don't have health insurance. So I was like, where do I go? And I was like, Planned Parenthood. Okay. So went and had my first experience there, and then I found out after waiting for a long time that you can't have a pap smear done on your period. So then there was also that. I was on my period this morning. And then I was like, okay, now I've wasted like an hour and a half of my time. And then was trying to get here early to be like, I'm prepared, I'm professional, like I'm put together. And it just so did not work out that way. Then I ended up having a call that I did not want to have and didn't feel like I was listened to, and then there was no parking, and then my phone was dying, and then I ended up just going back to my house and taking the monorail, and all in all made it here, and everything's fine. But all throughout all of that was just so emotional and like a lot of negative self-talk that I was trying to manage, which I'm sure you're not unfamiliar with.
I know it well.
Yes. So yeah, sometimes you just got to share with people you're just having a mental health day, and I'm glad that you communicated that to your staff today.
Yeah.
And
it's so much easier when things aren't going well to just be really honest, because then everybody else is with you. Like I was so excited to see that you made it here because you were like, I'm having a time. I think if you had just like strolled up in a bad mood and like, I would have been like, oh God, she doesn't really want to interview me. This is terrible. But you were being really honest and vulnerable. And like, I was having a similar day. So I'm here with you. I feel for you. And it sets everything off on the right foot. And I think we all want to have it together. And I think we all have a really clear idea of what that should look like. And none of us do. There's not a single person that does.
Yeah.
Not for very long, at least.
Yes. You might feel like you maybe have that for like a minute, and then life will check you real quick.
Yep.
Yes. And I think that's part of why both of us on our platforms like want to encourage people to just be vulnerable, be transparent, be honest about where you're at, because then it could lead to feeling great like this. Like, definitely in the back of my head, I'm like, oh my God, she's going to think I'm so incapable and like unprofessional and this is so terrible and I'm so embarrassed. But then I'm like, if I'm just open and honest about that, like I don't actually feel any of those things. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm so happy that we're both here and that we're both able to do this together. So,
Absolutely.
So it works out. But so I want to get a little bit into, like, there are so many parts of your story that I don't know, but the bits and pieces that I do know, I love so much. If you guys don't follow her, you should. It's Constellation Co, right? Mm-hmm. And you have some letters here that I definitely want to get into. But first, I mean, where did this whole journey, the life of Sara, begin?
Oh gosh, that's very open-ended. Yeah, let's see. Let me fast forward and try to pick a time.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to start from birth. It's just way too far ago. Yeah, I mean, the way that I got into designing greeting cards was basically I got out of college in 2009. I graduated with a graphic design degree and I couldn't get a job. And I moved to Seattle with my fiance, and we were unemployed for a while and really struggled.
Yeah.
And he eventually got a job at Microsoft. That's, you know, you move to Seattle, you get a job at Microsoft. That's kind of how it goes.
I was like, oh, so Seattle.
Exactly. That like first year contract.
Yeah.
Which helped us stay in a place to live. You know, we had rent.
Yeah.
And I really struggled. And I'm very determined and persistent and type A. And I was very driven in college and always overachieving, always doing the most.
Yeah.
And when I graduated and things didn't fall into place for me, it kind of wrecked my sense of self.
Yeah.
In a big way.
Totally.
So instead of getting a job, which is what you always dream of out of school, you'll get a job.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
Like, so what are you going to do now? Where are you going to work?
Exactly. I did a year-long apprenticeship to learn to be a letterpress printer, which was a really cool experience. Very different than what I expected.
Yeah.
But it gave me a set of skills that I could work with. And I started my own business. And
which, like, is amazing.
Yeah. But I was ashamed of that for a really long time because it wasn't like I set out with a goal to start a business and I started one.
Yeah.
It was like I had nothing to do with my time and I was flailing. And so I started doing anything I could do to make $1 and built a business from there. And I'm 10 years in.
Yeah, wow.
Which is a big deal.
Yeah.
But also it took me a long time to feel like I did something, that it wasn't just a reaction to my circumstances.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of, gosh, it's been such a journey to be the face of my company. Because I do have a team of about 5 people right now. So I'm not the only person doing what we do. But I am the face of it. And all of my experiences, and there are many, and they have been very difficult at times, but all of them make up who we are as a company because what we write about for these greeting cards are not what you get at Hallmark. They are about mental health and grief and struggle, and some of them are really ridiculous and silly. But really where my heart is to write cards for circumstances that there are not cards for.
Yeah.
Because sometimes no one knows what to say. There's so many hard circumstances. No one has the right words. So trying to craft the words that I would want to hear in a tough time has kind of driven me to keep writing and to share those things.
Yeah, and it's hard because I think so many people struggle with not knowing what to say and wanting to say the right thing or wanting to say the best thing, and sometimes there isn't that. And I feel like even your cards make that feel okay. And I guess actually on a recent flight, I watched this, and that's probably why it's stuck in my head now. It's one of my favorite movies, 500 Days of Summer.
It's a good one.
Yeah, where he works at this like greeting card company, and he's like, we're selling people lies. And you're doing the total opposite. So I feel like he would love to work with your company.
Yeah. I liked that movie a lot for that reason. It was kind of funny.
Yeah.
It's a weird job to have. It's a weird job to tell someone else that I have.
Yeah.
But it's something I'm really, really grateful for.
Yeah. And something that, like, I mean, you're very good at. Like, I've given several cards to friends, and even family members as well. And like, it feels so much more personal to me. Like it doesn't just feel like, I stopped at Hallmark and just found a cute card and, tried to shove it in the envelope and was like, sign my name. And I'm like, here you go. Like, it feels very personal. And I feel like I'm actually able to like connect with people when I give it to them. And I think it's a whole other layer of empathy that you express through your cards that I really appreciate.
Yeah. Thank you.
We should read some so people know what we're talking about.
All right. Here, let me see if I can pick a couple of them.
Yeah. And they range from like all different kinds of topics too, which I love. It's literally like this one, like, love this one. Things have been rough lately. I don't always know how to thank you for all the ways you care about me, but please know that I've carried your encouraging words with me as I've walked through some dark places. Your empathy and kindness make a difference in my life. Thank you. That's so sweet. I can think of several people I want to send this to already.
Yeah. And that's where they all come from. I mean, I write almost everything. I'm such a nerd, but I write in a sketchbook with a fountain pen. Like, I like the old school way, and everything gets written out in a moment where I have strong emotions, and I close the book on them and I push it away and I ignore them for a while. And then I go back through my notebook and start to pull out the strands of things that I think will be good to share, that I think people will want to say to others. Yeah. So they come from a place of like I felt that strongly.
Yeah. And I then feel it when I read it. I want you to read this one.
No matter what the ugly voices inside might be saying, let me be the one to tell you the truth. You are loved. You are worthy. You are not a burden.
I hope all of you hear that. All of you that are listening right now, I hope you hear it. We will get there. No matter how long it takes or how many roadblocks we encounter, I know we'll get through this. One step at a time, brick by brick, sun up and sun down. We'll get there together. Like, you made me want to cry. Because they're so good.
Thank you.
They're so good.
It's really encouraging to me to see people respond well to them, because they're not, none of them are something I sat down like, I need to make some money, and so I'm going to write some cards that will, appeal to the people. Like, every single card, like, hearing you read them, I remember exactly what I was thinking when these words came together, and exactly the conversations I was having, and all of the life experiences I went through to get to that place where I could say that to myself and to someone else.
Yeah.
And they are hard fought. There's a lot of like blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah.
They're real things. So it's nice to see them resonate.
Yeah. Of any of the three that we've read, do you want to share backstory on? Of any of those three?
Yeah. We will get there is something that my staff and my husband and I all started saying to each other. There was a really tough season. It's going to get into like life things.
Life things are real things.
Yeah. So just to kind of like pave the story a little bit, some of my story is I've been through infertility, and I'm an adoptive mom, so I've been through the adoption process, and with my team, we've had a lot going on, a lot for everybody, because that's life. Everybody has a lot going on. And one of the members of my team had been fighting cancer for a really long time. And there were so many things we wanted to do for the business, and just even my husband and I in our life that we had been talking about, and things that we were like, oh, really want to get to that point. And we just started saying that, like, we will get there. We will get there. And it was this like mantra that all of us, did together, because it wasn't focused on what we couldn't accomplish today. It was focused on the place we're trying to get to. And one of the members of my team actually is a therapist, which is so helpful. Like, works for me part-time. It is also a therapist. And like, good God, we all need that. Like, we need that and like a massage therapist. That would be the two things. we really need. And she was sharing with me that one of her mentors, it was brick by brick was what they told each other. And that like, there were so many things like that, those conversations where, I don't know if you've experienced that, but every time you talk to somebody for a month, certain like threads will be going through every conversation. And it just feels like this ongoing thing where you're like, is the universe trying to tell me something? Like, like what is happening?
Yeah.
And, gosh, there was just so many things like that. Like I could get into the details, but just about everything in my life that just felt like a season of waiting and a season of being patient while things work themselves out.
Yeah.
And that idea of we will get there just was so important to everybody in my life in that period of time.
God, I am like loving this conversation with you, Sara, honestly. I do want to take a little bit of a break just because I love sharing with listeners about different products that I'm finding that I'm really enjoying. And I'm always getting questions about my hair. And unfortunately, hair is like so near and dear to us and we put so much value on it. But it can often be like difficult to actually find products that really work. And so I found Living Proof, which is actually created by scientists. So it's not just like marketing gimmicks, like they are serious about finding the problem and creating a scientific solution. It's seriously legit. And they actually, within their products, they do all of this without using silicones or parabens or any of those like nasty chemicals that we don't want in our products. Their dry shampoo is amazing. It actually cleans your hair. Like I would go rollerblade at Green Lake. Shout out to all my Seattleites. And afterwards, like I would use their dry shampoo and my hair actually feels clean. Like it's not just masking oil or sweat. It removes all of them completely. And my hair felt clean and fresh. And I was ready to like go about the rest of my day. And I would love for you guys to be able to check them out and experience this. And I really want you guys to do what I did and make the switch to Living Proof by visiting livingproof.com/Taylor and use promo code Taylor to get a free sample of their award-winning dry shampoo with your purchase. Honestly, it's my favorite product. That's livingproof.com/Taylor, promo code Taylor for a free sample of dry shampoo with your purchase. livingproof.com/Taylor, promo code Taylor. But back to the show. Now I've had multiple people email asking about an infertility episode and saying that would be a topic that they would want me to discuss. And I have a friend here who works as a infertility doctor, I believe is what she refers to herself as, who helps women work on their fertility. And definitely want to get her on an episode, but I imagine that, that makes total sense, that the waiting and the not knowing when it comes to infertility, and then also through that phase or season of going through the adoption process as well, like the brick by brick, sun up, sun down, like I can totally see where just kind of having that as a little bit of a mantra can help like sit with that.
Yeah.
The weight. Yeah.
I think one of the things about infertility that nobody talks about is that you no longer have control. And the adoption process is a lot like that too. There's just, you have no control. And I don't do well with those things.
Yeah.
I'm learning. I feel like the world and my life have taught me a lot of lessons about that. But there's so many lies that you hear. There's so much self-talk that gets so ugly.
Yeah.
Because you start to question, like, who am I as a woman if my body can't create life? Like, is that not part of what everyone thinks of when they think of being a woman?
Yeah.
And, you get in a room with a lot of other moms. And now that I'm a mom too, there's a certain aspect of belonging that I feel. But it always, like, you always get down the road to, like, everyone wants to talk about their birth story. And, for my son, like, his birth story is very different than my friends.
Yeah.
And it's still beautiful, and it's still a day that I will never forget, but it's wildly different than what other people are talking about. And you just have all of these feelings of, like, am I a whole woman? Is there some reason that my body doesn't do this other than medical? Like, is there some, I think you can probably imagine all the things that your brain could tell you. Yeah. Like, am I not meant to be a mom? Am I not going to be a good mom? And am I disappointing my husband? Am I, is there something about this experience that I'm missing out on that is worth grieving? And it is. It is. Because anything in your life that you imagined or that you, believed you'd have someday that you realize you can't have is difficult.
Absolutely.
And it's difficult to talk about even still. And I've been, we're on like 6 years that I've been going through infertility. And I don't want to have a baby at this point. Like I have my beautiful son is almost 4 and I have my business and I'm busy as hell. I'm like so busy. So I'm not like sitting around and hoping and waiting anymore. I'm not in that phase, but it's still part of my life and part of my story. And it still gets triggered sometimes when I least expect it, that grief, that struggle. And, it's why I sought therapy in the first place.
Yeah. Okay.
Because the 2 years that I went through infertility before we started the adoption process were some of the hardest of my life, where I felt the most disconnected, the most misunderstood, and the most lonely, because my husband did not understand and can't understand.
Yeah.
And I don't expect him to perfectly. He understands it way better now than he used to.
Yeah.
But there was really no one I could go to talk about it. And I got a lot of really bad advice and a lot of people saying really hurtful things because it was uncomfortable and they didn't know what to say.
Yep.
So people either won't address it and so they'll say nothing, which is awkward and uncomfortable and not great, or they'll say something really dismissive that makes you feel like what I'm going through isn't important to anybody but me.
Yeah.
So it's just it's a crazy time. And, if you're going through that, out there in the land of, listening to this right now, you are certainly not alone. And one thing I learned is that the more I shared what was going on and was honest about it, the more people came out of the woodwork. It was almost every day. I would share something on Instagram or wherever else, and people would flood my DMs. I'm going through this too. And you're the only person that's talking about it. And it just meant so much to me to know people were just afraid. They were afraid to talk about it. There's still a big stigma around infertility.
Yeah. I was going to say, I feel like I can imagine that there's a lot of shame surrounding infertility, especially with all those kinds of thoughts that you shared. Those are just filled with shame. And when you don't speak that, and when you don't, give light to that, you're just feeding it. And it's a really scary step to feel oh my God, I'm about to really show myself. And it feels like I want to crawl out of my skin, but I'm so happy to hear that people met you with that. And I feel like that's a theme that I say every episode, or that a guest says every episode. And I hope that listeners aren't tired of hearing it. And they're like, oh, okay, I get it. Share, because it leads to good things. But it's so true. And it's apparent in every person I talk to. And I mean, I feel like even with you doing these cards, it also gives people, this whole episode, by the way, is an ad for the most authentic, genuine ad for the whole thing.
Hashtag not sponsored.
Yes. So you were saying that was why you had started therapy, was throughout the infertility experience. You had never done therapy before that.
I had gone a couple times in college through some other really hard things I was going through in college.
College is hard.
But it was 2 or 3 times. And when my son was 6 months old, I kind of realized this didn't just go away when I became a mom.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of other really hard stuff going on. And then becoming a mom it doesn't matter how you become a mom. It is a culture shift, absolute...
It's a total identity, change.
Yeah. I know all of the baggage that I had taken through life. I always had this idea that when I became a mom, I would have had it all figured out so that I could not mess up my kid. And then you realize when you are a mom, oh no, there is no... before and after.
Yeah, you're wait, I'm still the same person with the same shit.
And it reveals that stuff so deeply. Because I'd been married a while when I became a mom. So there was some of that early marriage stuff where you're figuring out how selfish you are, and you're like, you know, figuring out all of these like buttons you push in each other and your traumas, and trying to understand each other's triggers and like all that stuff. Like you go through that, and then you become a parent, and it's like that all over again in a new way. And you start to process things about how you were raised and your childhood, and there's just so much there.
Yeah.
So I had sort of thought like, I'll go to therapy for a little while and get back on my feet and feel good again. And I have not stopped going. It's been 3.5 years.
Yeah.
And I will say, for people starting therapy, like it's taken me this long to really get to the root of what's actually going on, and not to be just addressing the symptoms, but to be actually dealing with the traumas.
Yeah.
Like we're in the middle right now of unpacking some of the hardest stuff. And I feel safe to do it because I'm with someone I know very well, who knows me very well now.
Yeah.
And I'm there. I'm ready to do that. And I'm kind of blown away that it took me this long to address them, but also like, you know, some of these things are very deep traumas, very deep hurts, and things that it took me 10 years to tell anyone, let alone actually unpack in therapy. So I'm just like, I don't know. I feel like in my sphere, in my life, I am the like therapy evangelist.
Yeah.
I'm like, you should go to therapy and you should go to therapy. And not because I think everyone's messed up, but because like the mess, like here in the middle in this mess is where all of our lives happen. Like there is no, I'm messy, I'll get it together, and then I'll like start a relationship or become a parent or start a business. It's like
the mess is just currently happening all the time. And we're just kind of like, sometimes we like reach a clearing, but then it's like, okay, wait, there's more stuff to get through.
Exactly.
And that's totally okay. And I think like it's, you know, good to maybe have some empathy for yourself, some self-compassion that like, it's okay that it's taken this amount of time, you know? Like sometimes the time is needed. And you never know how long it's going to take. You might go and, you know, second session, you might be like, whoa, epiphany, you know? But if it doesn't feel like that in the beginning, definitely stick with it. And I think it just generally takes a little bit of time. But you said that, you know, first you kind of are working through the symptoms and then kind of getting to the root. And I'd love to kind of go into both of those, like what those symptoms kind of look like what things you were noticing in your life and how they were presenting themselves. And then if you're comfortable with discussing it, then like some of the root of those symptoms.
Sure. Yeah. I think the reason I started in the first place is I was having increasing panic attacks.
And what did that look like for you?
For me, it's like extreme increased heart rate. I get really dizzy because my heart rate is spiked, my blood pressure. And I feel nauseous. Sometimes I'm physically ill and I can't think, I can't do anything. Sometimes I'm crying, but mostly it's just I feel so out of control. And I'd been having panic attacks back through high school and college, and they had settled down a little bit in my adult life. And then after becoming a parent, I started having them a lot. And
how were you dealing with them when they would come up?
I wasn't. I mean, they were crippling. And then like add nausea and, you know, illness to that. And then like physically, I would just crash for days at a time. And I operate at a pretty high level. Like I multitask quite a bit. I do a lot. I do too much, to be honest with you. And right now I'm like pruning it back.
Yeah.
But I'm always busy and I'm always active and taking on new projects and doing new things. And when I'm not taking care of myself, it looks like I'm fine, and I'm out. Like I'm done. So a panic attack would come on and then it would take me a few days to actually get back to functioning as a human. Yeah. Which was really scary for me.
And then when that starts happening and you're also a new mom.
Yeah. It's awful because you feel like you're going to fail your kid. And my son and I are really similar in a lot of ways. Like he has big feelings, big emotions, big swings of mood, and feels things really deeply. And I realized pretty early on that the only way he was going to learn to deal with that stuff is if he was seeing me deal with it. And it wasn't just like pretend it's fine and never have a panic attack in front of him. It's like show myself kindness, show him what rest looks like, and show him what asking for help looks like, and model that. Because if there's anything that people tell you about being a parent that is 100% true, is that kids do not listen to what you say. They pay attention to what you do. And now that he's almost 4, it's like, he's a little, he's doing his thing. He's living his life, and he's doing exactly the things he sees me do.
Yeah.
It's infuriating sometimes because I'm like, no, I said don't do that. And he's like, well, you're doing it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I just want to take a second to remind everyone and take a little mini break to remind you guys that I am still selling some of my clothes on Poshmark. It's a free app. You guys should download it. They have women, kids, and men, and so many brands you can shop. And I will also be selling my clothes on there. But you guys should download it and check it out quickly because these items are going to sell out. I do have more that I will be uploading, but the whole process is so easy. Like getting rid of clothes has always been like super stressful for me. Figuring out like, what can I get money for? What can't I get money for? So it's been super helpful to use Poshmark and just like, I can put it all out there and see what you guys want to get. And then whatever else I'll end up probably donating. But you guys, listeners, you guys can get $5 off your first purchase with me. So go to Poshmark, download the app, and then you can use the code TaylorNolan5 when you sign up. So enter TaylorNolan5 to get a $5 discount off your first purchase, and definitely check out the app. So there's your reminder. But now we'll get back to the show. So the panic attacks had started increasing once you'd had your son, and that was one of the symptoms kind of encouraging you, motivating you maybe to seek help. Were there any other like symptoms or...
I had started daydreaming about like all of the other avenues my life could have gone down. Like I found myself like fixating on like, what if things had been like this? What if things had been like that? And what if I did this?
Ruminating.
Yeah. And just being unhappy and feeling unhappy in my marriage and in my job and in everything. And the more I looked at it and like really stood back and looked at my life was exactly what I wanted. I just wasn't what I wanted. And I couldn't escape myself.
Yeah.
I was the immovable thing.
That just like gave me such goosebumps hearing you say that your life was exactly how you wanted it, but you were not
like,
what you wanted.
I am so freaking blessed. Like I married my best friend and I have my dream job. But if I'm not healthy in the middle of that, that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't make me happy.
Yeah.
Like I can destroy my life just as easily as the next person. No matter how, well it has turned out for me. And I'm so grateful for my life. But, I can't, no one else can make me happy or feel good or be healthy. Like I have to do those things.
And I think it's a very common thing that we try to find our happiness in other people. And we would say, well, I married my best friend, so I'm happy. I should be happy. Or once I marry my best friend, then I'll be happy. And really that is all within us to figure out. And that can take a while. And some days it's better than others.
Absolutely.
And, I think I'm curious if your husband had received any kind of therapy or if you guys did any together, like once you had your son, or
we haven't done any together, but he has as well. And he's he's a fairly well-adjusted human. Like I always look at him and be like,
I mean, he works at Microsoft.
Well, he's at Amazon now.
Okay.
So Seattle, it's ridiculous. Everyone always asks what he does, and I'm like, I don't know. He works on gadgets.
Yeah.
No idea.
Love
it. But he has as well. And a lot of what we've realized over the last few years is that like, there's nothing wrong with our marriage that we can't figure out, but we are always going to be like butting heads against each other's trauma and against each other's like upbringings. And we both, for all intents and purposes, like both sets of our parents are together and we had fairly normal childhoods, but there's still a lot there that I'll say something that is completely innocuous in my head, and it will hit him like a ton of bricks.
Yep.
And it will take days for me to figure out what I did. And it's not that he's done anything wrong or I've done anything wrong. It's just we respond to each other on a level that we don't even understand if we're not really diving into that and trying to figure it out. And I've been doing a lot of that kind of work lately. Like, why does this bother me so much?
And that's a dynamic that I think plays out in like every interaction. Like we all have, I like to call them like our foggy lenses on, where that's how we perceive the world, is through our particular pattern of blurred lenses.
Yes.
You know, there's always going to be things within us and how we've lived our lives that are going to cause us to interpret things differently. And until you really take the time to unpack a lot of that stuff and recognize the symptoms, how you're talking about, can you actually get to what some of the root of that stuff is, and why that's coming up. And so I love that you're like asking yourself, why is this bothering me? Like, where is this coming from? That's always like very like therapist-y question, but it's what I always ask like my girlfriends or my friends or family when something's coming up. I'm like, okay, where do you think this is coming from?
Because we stop yelling and start actually like seeing each other when we can ask that question.
Yeah.
And when one of us has that like little moment of breakthrough, like I'm realizing that I'm so angry about this because it's making me feel like this because this happened back in the day. And when we bring that up, it does build empathy for the other person, because you're like, oh, I've got that stuff too. Shoot, like neither of us are perfect. Neither of us, are free of shame and all of that fun stuff.
And I think it can be kind of tricky because I think some people might perceive that as like, well, he's using this as an excuse because this happened and that's why he reacted. And like, I was
thinking about that a lot today because I was catching up on a few of your episodes and I was listening to Dean and I was I like wanted to yell at my radio. Like, I was like, it's not an excuse. It's never an excuse for bad behavior. Like if there's abusive behavior happening, it's not an excuse, but you both come into a relationship with baggage and it's never a burden to the other person because you're going to carry their burden and they're going to carry yours and you're going to help each other. And there are going to be moments where you're like, I was a complete asshole and I'm sorry, but here's the reason why. And I'm not saying as an excuse. I'm just trying to help you understand so that you don't take it personally. Because it's not really about you. And I can apologize and I can make it right and I can act different next time. But these things will keep coming up because I'm human. And for the rest of my life, I'm going to be dealing with these kinds of things. I'm just like...
No, I absolutely love that. Dean, listen.
I will say, though, that I realized while listening to that episode that so much of what he frankly says about what he's thinking and how he handles relationships and not wanting to lean on other people, like I have the right words to say. Like I have the language to be like, you should rely on people and you should build empathy and you should all do all these things. But what my brain sounds like is what Dean is saying.
He said.
And so I was like, I know exactly how to answer him, but also that's the same stuff I'm doing. Like I went through a fairly like bad 48 hours of depression a couple weeks ago. And I spent all 48 hours trying to text anyone. Like, I'm just going to text one person and tell them I'm going through something. And I couldn't do it because I had all those same thoughts. Like, I don't want to bother them. They have their own issues. It's not their responsibility and they're not going to respond well. And I'm just going to be disappointed because they didn't, care for me the way I needed. And, so I am the person who writes the words about the empathy and like preaches the connection and all that stuff. But I still have the same stuff in my brain. We all have that stuff.
Well, first, text me. Second, I think no matter, like, I think a therapist is a good example for this because we're definitely up against a different kind of standard at times and stigma, where no matter what kind of person you are, what experience you have, what education you have, you're also human and you're also like, you're not prone to shame, or you're not, words are hard today.
You're not immune.
You're not immune to shame. That still is gonna come up. And you've you've noted that like things come up and that you've worked on some of this trauma more recently, maybe in therapy. And what kinds of things do you notice that are coming up? Maybe it's specific, like with your son, or maybe it's totally.
Yeah. One of the big themes in therapy that comes up a lot for me is using my voice. So speaking, being the face of my company, speaking about these things that are important to me. Yeah. I'm working on writing a book, and
oh my God,
I know, it's exciting and nerve-wracking.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You're going to have to come back. We're going to have to do another episode.
It'll be a while. It'll be a while, but I would love to go back.
Yes.
Yeah. So a lot of it is about using my voice and giving voice to my grief and giving voice to these like big emotions that are, I've always believed are too much for other people to handle. Like, I am too much.
The grief is specific to the infertility?
It's specific to infertility. I lost my grandmother, who was like my person, at 15 and never really dealt with that. And, the things that have been coming up most recently, I just lost a dear friend 4 months ago, to cancer. And so that's been triggering, other losses. That grief is just uncomfortable, familiar feeling. Like it's such a weird, like comforting blanket where you're like, I've felt this before, but it's also like inescapable when you're in the middle of it. So there's that. And then, to be perfectly honest, because that's what we're doing here. We're talking about it. I experienced sexual assault when I was in high school, and all of the things going on in our political landscape have been triggering, like deeply. And I would say I never understood the concept of trigger, really. And then there have been things happening lately that I'm like, wow, okay, that's the trigger right there. Like I've also had the experience of sitting in court and giving testimony, and
from that experience.
No, from a completely different experience. Okay. But basically, the combo of having been assaulted and having given testimony on that day. When that woman was having to experience that, I was literally like, I could feel myself in that chair. And for that whole day, all the days since then, I have been reliving so much of that, and not even just the assault itself, but all of the self-talk that came after of like, no one will believe me, and it doesn't matter. And I didn't end the relationship, so it's my fault. And I chose to be in this relationship in the first place, and I should have known better. And just all of that stuff, all of the ugly voices, again and again about my worth. And when I talk about my voice and using my voice, that feels like an act of rebellion, because there was a time in my life where saying no didn't mean anything. It didn't matter.
Suppressed.
And so after that, it was like, well, what is the point? If in a moment that it really mattered, my voice wasn't worth anything, then why try? Like, why speak? Why speak up for myself? Yeah. And it's so crappy. Like, it's so bad and frustrating. And it's the last thing that I want to be dealing with. Like, I'm almost 32. Like, this stuff happened in high school. Like, I don't want to be thinking about this. I don't want to be talking about it. I don't want to be experiencing it. And I don't want anything I'm going through right now to be about that. Because it was something I spent so many years trying to put behind me. Yeah. But I didn't tell anybody for 10 years. Yeah. I didn't like really literally say it out loud for 10 years. And now it's been like 15 years. Yeah. And I'm actually starting to see that I've been carrying it all by myself, and the shame and the guilt, and like, I have been beating myself up over it for 15 years. And it feels embarrassing, honestly, to like admit that. But I want to talk about it because I know other people have gone through this. I know they're going through it right now. Like, our country is in a very specific moment. Yes. Or I think there's a hell of a lot of us
Yes.
having this experience.
I mean, I've already got several messages from people sharing their stories and saying, you know, how it's impacted them and how it's triggered them. And even everything that you just said puts all the words to it. And it's interesting because even as I think back, there were several experiences in high school that I definitely have not dealt with yet, and they've been triggered at certain points, but it has not been a box that I've been ready to open. And certainly there are safe spaces for it, but I know I'm not there.
Yeah.
But I think
so okay.
Yeah. And I'm like, I hear other people's stories, and I do think it is really important to talk about. And I think once I do talk about it, it will feel better. And it's interesting because the only times that I have actually brought it up has been when I'm having to defend a victim in a conversation, trying to explain the circumstances. And then it's blurted out in a very defensive way as like, well, you know what? You really don't understand. You really don't know because you haven't been in such and such situation. Like, I get it. I get why this person would not want to say anything. And it is really, really shitty. And I mean, I'm happy that you are like going to be perfectly honest.
I'm really trying.
Yeah, because you're so not alone in it. Even as you're talking to me about it, I'm like, yep.
Yeah, and it's so scary because we've seen literally played out in social media and everywhere else and on the news, like all of the self-talk, literally published for everyone to see. Like, because I think every woman who's been assaulted reads those things and goes, "This is what they're saying about me. This is if I spoke up. This is all the things that I would hear," and it's terrible. It's terrible because no matter what you feel politically, like victims of sexual abuse. Like it's not just well, why didn't you tell anybody? It's like I literally could not make my mouth form those words for 10 years. Like literally couldn't even admit to myself that that's what happened to me because it was so traumatic. Yeah.
Literally even in the moment I had no words. I literally couldn't speak. I felt like I was paralyzed. Literally could not speak, let alone like, let me go and tell someone like, what?
Because there's this inherent thing that happens when you're abused in any way, where your brain goes straight to, if this is what's happening to me, this must be what I deserve. Yeah. Like if I am so easily used and thrown away, then that's just who I am. And it is easier to believe that and to just look at yourself in the mirror and go like, I'm garbage. And to believe that for the rest of your life than to actually address what happened and to grieve that. Yeah. It is hard work. It's risky. It feels so emotionally expensive.
That's where I'm like, I'm not ready.
I know. Yeah. But I think like, I'm about to turn 32 and I think at 32, I'm ready to stop believing I'm garbage. Yeah. Because I don't want my kid to believe he's garbage. I don't want these things to happen to him. But if they do, like, God forbid, but if they do, I want him to be able to look at his mom and say, like, it's possible. It's possible to have seen some things. Yeah. And to move forward. Like,
and that just because that happens to you does not mean that you are garbage. No. At all.
And it's so easy when you're talking to somebody else, like when people have shared their stories with me, it's so easy for me to say like, you are beloved. You are a delight. You are everything. And when it's myself, it's so much more comfortable to believe that I'm garbage.
Yeah. And that's always where, like, if a friend is going through something, I always say, I'm like, when we get off the phone, I want you to have a conversation with yourself. And I want you to talk to yourself as if you are a friend of yours and what you would say to them, because you need to step outside of yourself right now to give yourself some compassion and empathy. Because you know that the negative things that you're saying in your head are not true. And it was actually interesting when when after Dean was on this pod, I went on his pod, Help I Suck at Dating, and they had a therapist on, and we were just talking about stuff, and I was like, one of the biggest things that I always try to remember is like, you are not your thoughts. You are the observer of your thoughts. And Dean was like, what? What are you talking about? Like, I was like, how does that make sense? And it was kind of like combative with me on it. And I'm not sure if I fully explained it really like well enough. But to me, that gives me such comfort and perspective, because when you are just thinking that you are all of your thoughts, like when your thought says you're a piece of shit, like then you're like, oh shit, I'm a piece of shit. Like, but if you step outside of that and are like, okay, I notice that, you know, that voice is saying that I might be a piece of shit, but I'm not going to listen to that voice. Like when you just believe everything that your mind says, you can become so paralyzed, and that's where like panic attacks and all kinds of things can come up, because you're in your head. You're not actually in touch with what's surrounding you. And when you take a step outside of that, you can see everything else. And I think it allows for so much more to get in than just the fear that your mind is speaking from. Because oftentimes we're fucking scared, and we're trying to protect ourselves. So a lot of our thoughts are going to be like to try to protect ourselves or try to fucking like tear us apart and be our harshest critics. Yeah. And it's really hard to step outside of that. And like, even today when I'm coming here, I'm like, you know, step outside of yourself, empathy, it's going to be okay.
Yeah. I sort of think of my brain as like a detective with like deep confirmation bias. Like I'm going through the world, like taking evidence, like finding the evidence that I am actually garbage. Like, cause that's what I believe.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to find the evidence that proves that.
Yep.
And so I'm just pulling selectively what will back up my hypothesis and like filing it away for later. Like, see, you're garbage.
I definitely like right after the show, that was a huge thing I did. Even any comment that I would look at on any photo, it was like I was just preparing myself internally. I could feel this like just steam inside me of like, this was gonna be negative, like prepare, like a buffing up of myself to like read this comment and like, this one's gonna be negative. This one's gonna tell me I'm a piece of shit. This one's gonna tell me I should never be a therapist. This one's gonna tell me I need to go kill myself. This one's gonna tell me I'm like a fucking ugly black person. Like what else are you gonna throw at me? You know? And it's really shitty to like not even step outside of ourselves to see all the other things that are being said, like the confirmation bias. I'm so glad you brought that up because it's so real.
Yeah. And we are all so very capable of that, and not just capable, like that is our bent. Like we're always leaned that way.
Yeah.
And it is hard work. And I think all the time about like the people in my life that I don't consider like the most self-aware, the people that aren't in touch with their emotions and those kind of things. And I see how expensive and how difficult and how it's like working out every day. Like everybody wants the 6-pack abs, but nobody wants to be in the gym every day. And that's what I feel like mental health has been for me. Like being in touch with what's going on and even having empathy. Like empathy is this beautiful, beautiful thing, but it literally costs you. It costs you your like great afternoon in the sunshine. Like it is like everything that comes up. If you want to be an empathetic person, you put yourself in that place and you're like, what would it feel like for me to be experiencing that? And it's expensive.
Yeah.
Like,
you have to be vulnerable in order for that to happen.
Yeah. And it means that you're not going to like have it together all the time. Because you're going to be affected by the things that happen around you, to people that you care about or to people you don't even know. So when I think about other people, like sometimes I look at it, I'm like, that could be kind of nice to not worry about anything, to not like go there and be like, I don't have feelings, it's fine. Like, but I also know that it's like, you're going along just fine and you're going to fall off the cliff eventually. So I would much rather be like, you know, at the gym working on my abs, like not that I'm literally doing that, but you know what I mean? Like working on my mental health all the time so that when stuff comes up, it's a speed bump instead of a cliff. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it. And I'm curious for you how if you can like put words to it, or maybe an example to it of how you are putting into practice, like addressing those root traumas when they're triggered.
I do a lot of writing. So I try to give myself freedom to write whatever I'm thinking and to not edit. So I like to write longhand so that I can't edit as I go, and write things that I'm not going to share. And then later I might share them. But the act of writing something that no one's ever going to see is really good for me. So I do that. And then consistent therapy has been really important for me. And then I'm an what I like to call an external processor. I don't know if there's like a formal term for that. My husband's very internal, so he likes to think about things and take a lot of time to like process what's going on. And I don't know what I'm thinking until I've said it out loud.
Yeah,
which that has been so much conflict in our marriage, because he's like, I need time to think. And I'm like, I don't know what I think. So at the beginning of an argument, I say something that he's still thinking about at the end that I no longer believe because I've talked myself out of it. We're learning. We're figuring out how to like...
No, that sounds very much like my college relationship. Yeah. You'd like, I need to like take a break and like think about it. And like, no, I need to talk through it like right now. Like, I don't know what's going on.
So it's been like a blend of like having other people that I can use as a sounding board. And honestly, like I save things to talk about with my therapist. I talk to her, I process things, and then I bring stuff home and talk to my husband. And it's not like I can't talk to him. I totally can at any point. But there's going to be a lot less like stormy seas in our life at home if I know what I'm thinking before I'm expressing it to him. And it's just been a much better experience for all of us, I think.
Oh, good.
Good. So that's some of it. And I think a lot of it is really uncharted. And the times that I have talked about it publicly, like I'm fully aware that tonight when I lay down in bed, it's going to be like, well, my brain is going to be like, oh my God, you talked about that. People are going to listen. Like, what is happening?
Yeah.
But the more I do use my voice, the more I do speak up and I do talk about it and I do like give light, literally like turn the lights on. Like I'm not hiding this in the dark anymore. Yeah. The better I feel about what's going on and what has happened, because it's not surprising. No one's like, oh God, how could this have happened? Like, what is it? Like 1 in 2 women? Like, this is not a surprise.
Yeah. No.
So, it's just like with infertility. Like the first time I shared that, it was horrifying for me. Like not because anyone responded poorly, but just because it was like something I feel a lot of shame around is now out in the world.
Yeah.
But the more I've talked about it, the more I realize like it's a part of me. It's part of who I am. It's part of my story. But there's a multitude of other things that are more important, that are more telling of who I am. Yeah.
And I find that your using of your voice is so helpful to other people. And like, honestly, very, very helpful. And you are someone that I reference in my head when I'm like, do I share this? Do I not share it?
Like, that means so much. It really does.
Like you'd posted a photo. You always have like beautiful makeup done. Like you always do your eyeshadow, like so good. Thanks. And I'm so bad at doing eyeshadow. But you'd posted this photo and you were like crying, and it was about just like everything that was going on. And it was so raw and it was so authentic and it was so vulnerable. And I was just like, that's amazing. Like
those are always the things I'm like, God, I shouldn't have done that. Like,
no, I'm so glad you did. I'm so glad you did. And like your voice comes through in like every letter, and even this one, God, just all of them. You don't have to be able to explain it. I don't have to totally understand. I'm still here for you. Yeah. You know how many times I've like...
Yeah. I like to think about like sitting in the middle with people, like not like, I really don't have to completely understand, and you don't even have to tell me, but like, I just want people to know that like, I'm in the mess with you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's the only place that real relationships happen is in the mess. Like, they really do.
I'm sad that you're sad because you're absolutely the best. Yes. Oh. Okay. All of them are wonderful, and they all, like, they're literally for anything you could like, just the most raw, like, authentic moments of reaching out to someone. That's like what I feel when I read them. And it's so nice to, like, put a picture to know that, like, it was kind of what I envisioned, actually, of you and where these came from, of just, like, you know, it coming from a place of raw emotion and, like, being very real and authentic to your life. And that's what helps us connect through your cards. And you ship everywhere, right?
I do.
Okay. Because I really want you guys to check them out, because I know I get messages about, like, oh, like, my friend is dealing with this, and, like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, or even, like, get a card for yourself.
Yeah.
Like,
put it in the bathroom mirror.
honestly, they're so cute. Like, one of them I just have, like, just propped up. I think it's the empathy, kindness, respect. Yeah.
That's why I reached out to you in the first place. Because I remember on the Women Tell All, like, you asked for empathy, and I was like, I am so with you. Like, I'm so with you. And I had just, this sort of slogan, empathy, kindness, respect, I had made for my, like, protest sign. Yeah. Back in the day when we started doing that. And it has meant so much. And we've been able to raise about $5,000 for refugee aid through selling the t-shirts. And it's just been, like, a big part of the last few years for me, is this idea of empathy.
Yeah.
And I just felt for you so much. Like, I watch the show and I always pick, like, one person. I'm like, that's my girl. That's my guy. Like, I'm rooting for them. Like, they seem like we could be friends. Like, I always pick one. Yeah. And you were, like, my person from right away. And I was like, just, it is such a shit world out there sometimes. It really can be.
It is.
But it can also be so beautiful. And I have seen you these last few years use whatever the show brought to help people and love on people and keep spreading those things that are important to you. And, like, what more could anyone ask but to, like, keep doing that stuff? Like, I'm proud of you. I really am. And I'm really glad I reached out, because I was like, I'm always so nervous doing that. I'm like, oh God, just one more person, like, slide into the DMs being awkward. But I was just like, I feel like she needs a little bit of support right now. And I just, like, No,
it meant a lot. It meant a lot, and it means a lot now. It really does. It means a lot. I'm so glad that we did connect. And I think even just a small amount of empathy goes a really, really long way, because even though you might have been like, oh, I'm just sliding in the DM, like that it shined through, like it still meant something to me. It helped me feel like someone saw me, and it's going to be hard for people to see you if you don't show them who you are. And that's where, like, I try to keep it real. Show myself, even when it's really uncomfortable. And I feel like you do the same. And even through your cards, like, you're showing yourself in every one of these, I think that's part of what makes them so great. Like, we're all just figuring it out. Keep going. Sounds like something I was just saying authentically in the sentence, but it's a card.
Yeah.
And it's great. Can you, like, tell people a little bit about, like, where they can find you? We've already mentioned some things, but, like, anything that, like, the store is working on, where the store is at. If you guys come visit Seattle, check out the shop, all the things.
Yeah, so we do have a brick and mortar shop in the Fisherman's Terminal in the, like, Magnolia Interbay neighborhood of Seattle. And everything is online at constellationco.com. And we have a coupon code for Let's Talk About It listeners for 20% off your order. And the coupon code is Taylor.
Yay.
So you can use that. And we're on Instagram and Twitter at Constellation Co. And gosh, we're just living life over there.
Yeah. If you guys haven't fallen in love with the shop already through this episode, something's wrong.
No.
And how did you come up with the name? Does his name have any kind of significance?
Yeah,
for you?
it's about, like, individuals coming together to make a bigger whole. Because I never wanted it to just be about me.
So
it was about
beautiful.
Like, everybody we work with and everybody who's a who's a customer. Like we make something together. Because the only thing I want in life is to help other people connect with the people they love. Like that's it. I want more connection, and I want for people to not feel alone. Yeah. So if any one of these cards sent to any person makes them feel less alone, like I am succeeding at my goals in life. Yeah. So
you are very successful. Very successful.
I think it helps to set an achievable goal. But I've really like dug deep to try to figure out what success means to me, and that is it. And that's helped me a lot because there's a lot of things about business that are impossible. Like, owning a small business is not easy. Like, no matter what it is that you're doing, what kind of thing you're making, or what you're selling, or what you're doing, like being a creator of any kind is really daunting. So setting an achievable goal that I can see.
And you know how you're like, you watch me and you're like, oh, like that's the one, that'd be my friend. If I had to like go through my Instagram, you're like the one person I'd be like, yeah, that's her. Cause like even with doing, I mean, that's my version of success as well. And like, that's a conversation I typically end up having with friends is like, what does success look like? Yeah. And a lot of friends that are like in tech and in business world. And it's like, okay, success money. What is success? That could be a whole other episode on its own. But for me, it's that connection. And even with doing the podcast, literally, I remember I was so nervous when the first episode was coming out and I was like, all these doubts. And I was like, as long as just like, even if just like one person listens and like takes something away from it, then that's amazing. And that's great to know that like positively impacted one person. Like that's great. Like that's why I want to do it. And if it's not doing that, then like I need to do something different because that's success. That's happiness. That's connectedness. That's, creating a whole community of people, a constellation. Oh, I love it. It gives me so many feels.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, I love it. And thank you so much for coming and sharing.
I'm so glad we got to do this.
I know, same. We're like, we have to like actually like hang out and not just like Instagram and record podcasts, but those things are great too. Yes. But yeah, I hope you text me.
I will.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. And check out her shop, you guys. Use code Taylor, 20% off. This is the ad for this episode. Okay. Thank you guys so much for listening. Please leave a review on iTunes. I love reading your guys' reviews on there. And you can also shoot, do you have an email?
I do. Yeah. It's hello@constellationco.com.
Yeah, if you want to send her emails.
If you want to talk about infertility or anything else, shoot.
Yeah.
I'm always happy to chat.
Yeah. So reach
out.
You
can slide into my DMs if you want.
Slide into the DM, guys. No shame there. But also leave reviews. I love getting your guys' DMs about what you take away from the episodes and like how they've impacted you. But also, please, would love iTunes reviews as well. So thank you. And you guys can also email the pod at ask.letstalkaboutit@gmail.com for like topics that you guys want to see me talk about with other people. And yeah, that about does it for today. Thank you so much again for coming and chatting with me.
I'm happy to be here.
Yes. All right. I'll talk to you guys next time.